Hello, Garland Nixon here. We got the hands off NATO protest. We've got the Netanyahu running around DC, all kinds of stuff going on. And we got my main man, Jamarl Thomas. We're going to get it all clear for you. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and I got to redo. I keep forgetting. I've got it set up for Telegram, which I haven't figured out, and I accidentally send the stuff to Telegram instead of Rockfin, and then I got to go. I don't know what I'm doing. Tell you the truth, half the time, but somehow I'm going to get it figured out, and hopefully very soon I'll be run on Rockfin again. Let's get going with it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Rockfin's are jumping. Anybody's watching? There we go. All right. Let's start here. So Bibi Netanyahu is in DC. I guess Donald Trump's playing Jeeves the Butler, Jeeves the Butler again as he slides a seat out for Netanyahu. Right here, dear sir, slides a seat back in. Talk about humiliating himself. But the discussion that we're hearing about Netanyahu is this. Are they talking about an Iran war? Is Netanyahu trying to convince him to get an Iran war or to attack Iran? Is Trump saying no? Is Trump saying yes? As if we know that's what they're talking about. Your thoughts on Netanyahu? I mean, we don't know that's what they're talking about. I imagine there's that discussion is being had. I got some different, a totally different, really, belief about the dynamic between the U.S. and Israel than a lot of people. But anyway, your thoughts on Netanyahu in D.C., Jamarl Thomas?
I think Trump's boss has just arrived in D.C. That Trump rolled out the red carpet for his boss, pulled out the chair for his boss. And this is after Israel has just murdered a 14-year-old American child. So day before, murdered a 14-year-old American child. A few days before that, executed rescue workers, heroes, murdered. Hands tied behind their backs, buried their bodies and buried the ambulance with them as if nothing took place. Basically, buried them in a shallow grave. And Donald Trump comes in as world markets crash around him, as the U.S. market crash. I just saw a Trump supporter telling he lost $14 million over the course of the last couple of days. World markets crash, and Trump completely unfazed and welcomes his boss into the White House. Netanyahu has pushed for an attack on Iran for the last 30 years. Put that in context. Netanyahu has pushed the U.S. to attack Iran over and over through multiple administrations, and he has one that has just issued a threat to Iran: negotiate with me or else. I would not be shocked if the conversation is, you should attack Iran, and if you don't, we will. Now, the rub is, if Netanyahu attacks Iran, and Iran responds, would Donald Trump get involved? Meaning, does he drag Trump into a war one way or the other? I don't know. Who knows? I would imagine that, considering that that's been the previous conversation that these two goofballs have been having, that might be something that's on the agenda, if not the only thing on the agenda. Meaning, there may be other items, right? Give me more money. I need you to stroke my testicles just because, I'm Netanyahu. I paid you a lot of money. I need you to do it. Do it. And you may just stand there just to see if Trump does it. And of course, Trump will. He'll do it. Meaning he is completely obsequious to Netanyahu. There's a scene. I don't know if you've ever seen Kelsey Grammer in the show called Boss. It is fantastic. A fantastic show. I've never seen Kelsey Grammer in that type of position where a man losing his mind and holding on to power despite the fact that he has a degenerative brain disease. But he's still himself as a politician. There's a scene where Kelsey Grammer goes to the bathroom, doesn't wash his hands. The other guy can see him not wash his hands after coming out of the toilet. And Kelsey Grammer comes to him and is like, all right, well, business over. And extends his hand, knowing that the man is going to shake it. That's Netanyahu. Trump is the guy who's shaking his hand. That's the relationship that seems to be taking place. Because otherwise, none of this stuff is in the U.S. best interest. Bombing Yemen, it's not in the U.S. best interest. Maintaining the deal with Israel was in the U.S. best interest and would have stopped the Houthis from attacks. But Trump is putting up videos of him murdering just people in a circle. I don't know if you've seen that video.
No.
They were celebrating the end, what is it, El Fitr. And the people were in a circle in celebration. There were no guns, there were no weapons, there were nothing like that. For all I know, those people might have been family. And Trump puts out a video saying, look at me murdering these innocent people in Yemen. And yet, Yemen is continuing to fire missiles, meaning you're just murdering civilians. You're blowing up water stations. You're doing things that are effectively murdering women and children. For what? For Israel? You're doing it for Israel, right? And so his boss is there, and Trump is welcoming his boss, pulling out the chair for his boss. That's what I think. Who knows what one war criminal, what one incompetent thug who is effectively ruining the world's economy and ruining us. Because the fact of the matter is that money that they're getting for the tariffs, they're going to give that to the rich in the tax cut. We are paying for it. We are paying the higher costs. We are paying for the layoffs that are going to take place. We are paying for all of these CEOs that are effectively saying there's going to be a recession, and so we need to lay off workers as a result of what Donald Trump is doing. I don't care what they're talking about. I assume they're up to no good. That's my thought.
Yeah. Well, you know, my dynamic with Israel is always, well, for years has been, I don't feel that Israel, I put it like this, I don't feel that Israel is controlling the U.S. any more than my arm is controlling my body.
Right.
It is an extension. It is a radial extension of my body, right? Look, Israel doesn't exist, right? It has no economy. The economy's gone. It has no economy. It has no military. Why? If you got no bullets, no bombs, no shells, no nothing, and your munitions factories, really the workers are laid off because they're out there, playing, child murder or what have you. They have nothing. Right. Israel is a shell of what might have once been a country, but it ain't even a country anymore. So my arm gets nutrients from my body. It gets blood and oxygen. Without that, this arm don't exist. So I can verbally, using words, I can separate my arm from my body. But in the real world, there ain't no separation between my arm and the body. Yeah. We can verbally say Israel versus the United States. If Israel does not exist right now with the United States, it is nothing but a radial appendage of the United States. And what I argue is this, and I always go back to this. Israel blew up a hospital and the world was like, oh my God, that's terrible. And some of the people in the Biden administration said, oh yeah, that's bad. And the MPs in Europe in Israel go, time out, Biden administration. Tony Blinken sat in that meeting and he approved every target. And then the Biden administration went, whoop, right? They were caught. The jig is up. The game is out. That we approve all of their airstrikes. We approve all of that shit. That they're doing what we want them to do. And we have plausible deniability. Oh, they're just dragging us around. They're doing these terrible things. They're forcing us against our will to do the same damn things we did in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Indonesia. Well, if they're forcing us to do things that we've done against our will, isn't it weird that we've done all of these things everywhere in the world? So when we slaughtered people in Indonesia, in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Iraq, Libya, when we slaughtered all of those people, Israel wasn't involved. But now that we slaughter people in Israel, they're doing it against our will. They're dragging us into this. My point is this. Why does the criminal put on a glove when he goes to the crime scene? So he won't leave his fingerprints at the crime scene. Plausible deniability. That's all Israel is. It's plausible deniability that the United States is not doing what the U.S. constantly does. I would argue, most likely, Bibi is sitting in here saying, what are you guys going to do? Well, we're thinking about attacking Iran. What do you think, Bibi? Well, I'd like to attack them, but you're the boss. I can't do shit without you. You call the shots. You refuel the tankers. You got the planes. You got the ships. We don't have nothing. But we'd like you to attack Iran. But hey, you're the boss. What you gonna do? That's the truth of the matter. Yeah. And so they don't want the American people to know that Israel is their top priority. That they believe the leaders of this country, that Israel, as a military and intelligence outpost in the Middle East, where all the oil is so critical to them. They literally believe the United States, if it doesn't have that military technology and intelligence outpost in the Middle East, that the U.S. is no longer an empire. They see it as existential to the empire, and they will do any kind of horrific murder, which is, by the way, they've been doing horrific murders all along. This is a small one in comparison to the ones they normally do, right? So I think that BB was there for us. Now, goes against common, belief. It amounts to the same thing. We're all saying the same thing. I think BB was there for his marching orders. He gets to give some input to the CEO, but he ain't the CEO. Why? Because if the CEO don't send him the bullets and the refueling tankers and the ships and all that, he got nothing. So I think he was there to give the CEO some input. Excuse me, Trump ain't even the CEO. He's an avatar for the real CEOs. I think he was there to give some input and his advice on what he'd like to see happen, which we always know. But, here's the other thing that we always talk about, too. The decision to Trump is also whether or not to end his presidency, because he knows if he pulls the trigger on that, there is a significant potential that his presidency ends right there. You think the markets are tanking now. You close the Straits of Hormuz, where 40% of the world's oil goes through. It's it for his presidency, and it's probably it for the U.S. empire. At that point, the world looks at the U.S., if they ain't already there, I know they're close, and say they're so unstable. They're so unreasonable. We can't deal with them. So the issue of attacking Iran is also the issue of the existence of the U.S. empire, because they're rolling it all. If they attack Iran, they're rolling the dice with everything. And whether they'll do it, I don't know. I tend to think not. And I do tend to think there's military people saying, I think there's military people telling them, I believe this all along, we can bluff a lot, but man, we lost a lot of shit in Ukraine. We've been pumping a lot of stuff. When I believe that when Trump came there, did his military people say, man, Biden gave them every damn thing. The missiles are gone. All that stuff's gone. We are just about out of stuff. We're barely scraping along. We can't make a major war with anybody right now. We can't do it because we're almost out of stuff. So I think it could be a big bluff, because the option to attack Iran might not be there, because we might have lost so much stuff over the course of the last 2 years in war.
I would tell you, when I worked at the radio station, and there was this thing of Biden came out and said Putin is going to go into Ukraine. No American believed that he was. Every American at that station was like, ain't no way. The U.S. lies all the time. This is nonsense. This is not going to happen. And then Putin went into Ukraine. And all of the Americans were shocked by it. I was like, oh my God, he just went into Ukraine. Why were we shocked by it? We were shocked by it because we live in a country that is not being invaded, that hasn't necessarily been invaded, that it's the oceans on both sides and allies, or at the very least friendly countries on the other side. We haven't been invaded to the tune of losing 50 million people in the course of 2 wars. And our context was different. That wasn't the context that Russia was living in. NATO was pressing on their borders for decades. They understood it was pressing on their borders for decades. And so their options and the way they looked at the world was fundamentally different. I don't know how many people thought Trump was going to have a trade war against the world because of how ridiculous having a trade war against the world was. You're effectively putting the U.S. market at radical risk in order to do this. This is jobs and everything else. Trump is like, I don't care that people are going to suffer and lose their jobs. So what? So if I look at it through that lens now, where I'm like, people can do crazy shit, then the fact that he put the bluff out there, Trump's ego is so tiny. Would he really risk the U.S. over his ego? Yes. I firmly believe yes. Could he be bluffing? Yes. Is the fact that he's bluffing, would that stop him from actually doing strikes, if not necessarily a full invasion, or at the very least allowing and pushing Israel to do strikes? Yeah, he may do that. I don't know. And because I don't know, and because I know he's thin-skinned tiny man who wants to dominate. And in his mind, we are the US, they're Iran. They don't get to tell us what they will and won't do. If we tell them to negotiate, they should negotiate. Would he use and have that bluff to be enough to motivate him and push him? Meaning, the moment you put out a deadline and the bluff, you're in a corner. And nobody takes you seriously if you don't go through with it. The fact of the matter is, would Trump's ego push him to do something that is not in the best interest of America, that would be radically destabilizing the markets and everything else? Yes, I think he's incompetent. So,
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I will see. I'm with you on that, because what we're saying is this, kind of like a civil court case, right? Where you don't come to beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. It's just 51%, the preponderance of the evidence, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's what we're doing. Both of us, or neither one of us, are saying no, beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty, he won't attack or he will attack. I think I'm saying, I'm going to go 51%. The preponderance of the evidence says he won't. But that means it's still 51-49. And that means you're on a razor's edge. I'm thinking, I think he won't. I'll put it to you like this. I think he won't, but I won't be shocked if he does, because the empire is really in a downward spiral to the point where they're so stupid now you don't know what they'll do and how stupid they will. And everything they do, I keep saying this, it's like a car driving on ice. What do you have to do? Stay off the brakes. The worst thing you can do is hit the brakes if you're driving on ice, because that'll spin you out of control, right? It's counterintuitive, but stay off the brakes. Just hit them and kind of guide yourself slowly. If you slam on the brakes, you're just going to start sliding out of control, right? Everything the empire does to try to stop this multipolarity, decline of the empire, everything they do to try to stop it, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, only makes it worse, only makes it get more and more out of control. They got to guide it. First of all, they have to accept we're not going to a multipolar world. We are in a multipolar world. Right. You no longer have economic dominance. Number one, what happened? China has economic dominance. You don't. You don't have industrial dominance. China and Russia have industrial dominance over you. Add this, Russia can take care of themselves. You can put you have put 26,000 sanctions on Russia, and they just shook it off and said, that's all you got. We can take care of ourselves. We make shoes, we make clothes, we make hats, we grow our own food. We can do whatever the hell we want. Sanction us all you want to. Oh, by the way, people always gonna come begging us for our gas and oil, even you. So shut up. So now we're like, okay, we're not the big man on the block. We, technologically speaking, we can't defeat Yemen. You know what I mean? From a technological perspective, but think of how absurd it would be to take on Iran when you can't take on Iran's baby brother. That's their baby brother. And I mean baby brother. You can't take them on. You can't take on, a Chihuahua's tearing your ankles up, and you're going to take on a cane Corso? Not wise. But as you said, those are logical things. We don't know. We have no idea what will happen with these lunatics. But we'll continue to cover. Something I wanted to bring up, the gray zone, relative to that. Get your thoughts on it. The gray zone has an article. Look at this. Trump White House holds Hamas entirely responsible for Israeli execution of Palestinian medics. Your thoughts on that story?
Russia blew up its own pipeline. Right?
Yeah.
That's effectively what that is. Russia blew up its own pipeline. Or Netanyahu came out once and said, telegenically dead Palestinians. And what he was trying to say was, these Palestinians forced us to kill them. That's what they did. And so they are telegenically dead. They're laying out there for the media consumption. I mean, this is utterly ridiculous. Just so the audience, if they don't know the story, medics went to a scene in order to assist after Israel had bombed or something like that. Israel gets there and finds the medics, ties them up with their arms behind their backs, and executes 15 of them, dump their body into a shallow grave, and then takes a bulldozer and bury the ambulance with them. And it comes out and says, they were terrorists that were doing something. Come to find out, they were tape of Israel doing that. At the very least, there was like audio recording or something like that in the recording.
I think they said they were coming at us in this ambulance, which can be very threatening. Ambulances are very threatening, apparently, and they didn't have their lights and their sirens on. It was an ambulance coming at you. But by the way, their hands weren't tied while they were driving, apparently. And if that happened, why didn't you just leave it there? Why did you have to tie their, put them in there and bury everything? You know what I mean? They started with that story, but if I'm not mistaken, I think the story changed.
They changed the story. Yeah, they changed it. Well, they changed it when all that evidence was coming out, effectively saying, hey, we exhumed the bodies and hands were tied behind their backs in the graves. How did that happen? Did they tie their own hands behind their backs? Like, it became
after they died?
Yeah, it's like, do you remember the Dave Chappelle thing where he was like, they kept finding people with crack sprinkled on them? And I was like, crackhead dies and he just sprinkles crack on himself. I don't want to leave any witnesses or answers. It's that, right? They're doing something like that. This is nonsense. Like, this is purely propaganda for the sake of propaganda. It's nonsense. It doesn't even make logical sense. And honestly, this is even worse than the nonsense they used to say about Russia's fighting with shovels. Russia's losing the war. Russia's running out of missiles. Blah, 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 blah. Russia blew up its own pipeline. And it's like, okay. That's even worse.
You know what it is to me?
Disgusting.
You know what it is to me? It's an insult because it's not even a story. It's the equivalent of saying, whatever, I don't care. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, hey, you just killed 15 medics. No, we didn't. We dropped their guns and our guns went off and accidentally shot all 15 of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's equivalent to saying, I really don't care what you think. I can do anything I want and get away with it. I'll make up a story. If you don't like that one, I'll make up another one. We both know that I shoot anybody I want and do anything I want, no matter how horrible and heinous, and there's nothing you can do about it. We both know that. And ultimately, that means what? What is the United States? Because there's only one reason they can do it, because they got Uncle Sam behind them. Yeah. And as I've said, about the Democratic Party being thoroughly, morally discredited, that's the United States right now. How is the global South? How's the world looking at people that see that happen, and they look at the Americans and they say they just murdered a bunch of ambulance workers? Yeah, it's the fault of Hamas. How so? Shut up and leave us alone, because we're the U.S. and we can say that and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what it is. Again, it is completely morally, if the U.S. wasn't morally discredited before, now you look at it, I'm an American and it's morally discredited in front of me. When I see these Democrats, supposedly stand, Cory Booker, whoever, anytime I see someone that's supposedly a Democrat, supposedly taking any moral stance against Trump, I could just throw up. Yeah. You have no moral ground. You have no moral foundation to stand on. It's over for the Democratic Party, as far as I'm concerned, morally. Yeah. So anyway, your thoughts?
By the way, it's an argument for the sake of an argument, right? I know you caught me with my penis in this woman, but I wasn't cheating. So, right. What are you talking about? It's an argument for the sake of an argument. And it's what I don't even know why they bother, to be honest. It's like, dude, we killed these people. What are you gonna do about it? Nothing. Just say it. Because that's all that argument is. I don't care that meaning everybody in the situation knows. And it's just there, knowing full well that everybody in the situation knows. It's glib. But see, I have a difference of opinion though. From my point of view, the only thing that really matters is power. Do you have the power to do X or Y? And if you have the power to do X or Y, who cares? I mean, Ritter was out there saying, well, this is America, that's Iran, we get to dictate terms. Okay. Under that logic, Israel has the force distribution. They can do whatever they want. And so if they want to kill 14 people, fair enough. If they want to kill a 14-year-old American, fair enough, they can do it. If we want to back them doing it, so fair enough. And from our point of view, we don't really need to justify it. And so you put out a glib story like that, effectively saying, no, they really shot themselves by accident. Okay, dude, really? Is that what you're really telling me? Like, it's more aggravating to me for them to put that out as opposed to just say, yeah, we did it, so what? I would prefer, but yeah, we did it, so what? I
I would,
honestly, because that is,
yeah.
I agree with you. That's infuriating. And that's insulting to people's intelligence. It's just outrageous.
And I would say this even about what Scott's saying. Here's the bottom line. He's right until he's not. Here's what I mean. You got a guy who this is reality. So you got this big kid and he's on the playground and he comes in every day. And whoever he wants to, I want your lunch money. Some kid says no, he grabs him and slaps him a couple times. The kid gives him his lunch money. He comes in every day. You over there, I want yours. They give it to him. And as long as he can do that, it's true. If he comes in, what's he going to do? He's going to take somebody's lunch money. I hope it's not me. Right? So from a pure perspective of power, that is absolutely true under pure power until it's not, if you know what I mean. And as long as you do it, and as long as people accept it, it's true. Now, as soon as you try to use that guy, kid walks in and says, I want your lunch money. And the kid says, no, you got to give it to me. Don't you understand? I'm the powerful kid on the block. He says, yeah, no, it's in my pocket. You can have my lunch money, but you got to come get it. You know what I mean? You can have I'm not saying you can't have my lunch money, but you got to take my the lunch money. And the kid looks at him and he starts to evaluate it and he goes to take it. And he may get the lunch money. His nose is broken. His eyes are black. He's got a tooth missing. He's got blood all over the place. And after that, he says, man, that was not worth the price I paid for that lunch money. Right? So he doesn't have that anymore. After that bloodiness that he took, and he might not. What happens if the kid punches the daylights out of him and he don't get the lunch money? So from a perspective of pure power, Scott is absolutely right. When you have the power, you dictate the terms until at some point you don't have the power. And how do we find that out? You tell somebody, give the lunch money, and they say no.
They beat the shit out.
You got a choice. Am I going to walk away and not try to take the lunch money, or am I going to try to take it? You know, and some guy says, you say, I'm going to take the lunch money. And somebody says, hey, come here. What? You know that kid that you want to take his lunch money? Yeah. You know, he's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You look over like, oh, yeah. I don't think you want to mess with that kid. I mean, he's small, but you're going to get hurt. I ain't saying you ain't going to win, but you're really going to get hurt if you tangle with that kid. Now you're like, and so the power dynamic has existed from up until, I would say, particularly what the Houthis are showing, the technology bridge, the technology being changed means somebody can stand. We used to be the only one that could do what they call them standoff weaponry. Now that's the standard. Standoff weaponry is the standard.
Yep.
And might I add this, that kid's standing there and he's got his hands behind his back. Does he have a brick in it? Does he have an empty hand? Does he have a knife? Does he have a gun? Now you got to go fight that kid. You don't know what's behind his back. So my point is, the U.S. doesn't really know how much technology. What did Russia give him? They're tight with Russia. Has Russia given them hypersonic missiles? Has Russia given them some real nasty stuff that we don't even know about? What do they have? We're not sure how much they have. And we know what they got. It's pretty nasty, right? So, yes, I would argue that what Scott's saying is not outlandish from a pure power perspective. And that goes up to the point where it's challenged. And then the person who exercises that power got to make a decision. Do I want to see if I still got it or not? But if you find out that you don't have it, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Yeah, power is a shadow on the wall. Game of Thrones. Power is a shadow on the wall. If people think you got it, they respond to what they think you have at your disposal. But again, the moment you have to actualize it, that's where reality comes in, right? And that's when it's like, I have to show, meaning I can talk all the shit I want up until the point where I have to show whether or not I can back it up. And look, truth be told, the world has become far more complicated. And becoming far more complicated, this idea that we're going to hit them with nukes, this idea that, oh, they're not going to be able to respond. We're going to decimate 90 million people. We're going to have an unprovoked nuclear attack on a country. This is outlandish. I'm sorry, it is. And the idea that they're not going to be able to respond, where they're going to damage either world markets, or they're going to be able to damage U.S. troops that are in the surrounding areas, or hit Israel. It's out, like, that is their game plan. They have been preparing for an attack for America for the last 20 something years. And the idea that they're not going to be able to respond is insane. And if Donald Trump believes that, he's whacked out of his mind. Like, military people say all sorts of weird shit. I mean, like during the Cuban Missile Crisis, they were telling Kennedy, hey, we can attack them and destroy the entirety of the Soviet Union, but they will only destroy our East Coast. So we'll only lose several, maybe 10 million people, but we'll destroy all of them. And Kennedy was like, these people are out of their fucking minds. That's what I feel about what Trump is doing. Like, there will be consequences that are going to extend beyond this bombing. And, you know, whether it's Netanyahu's pushing him, whether he's pushing Netanyahu, whether he's giving a wink and a nod to Netanyahu to go ahead and attack Israel with the idea that the U.S. would jump, I don't know. I'm just saying, this is fraught with uncertainty, and uncertainty in a way that will bite us in the ass. And the fact that Donald Trump, who calls himself an American first president, who's like, judge me by the wars that I don't start. This is a fundamental betrayal on so many levels. And, you know, Dave Smith, the comedian, has come to Jesus moment like, man, I voted for this guy. He seems to be repudiating everything that he said he was. No duh. No duh. I just like this. I'm sorry. I find all of this to be outrageous, right? That he is willing to do this without any justification, completely unprovoked. And he is egging this on, whether it's bluff or otherwise. It's just outrageous. Part of me wants him to do it. It's like, fuck it. You know, chip your tooth on that. Do that. Destroy your presidency. Destroy the world markets. Make America realize how incompetent and how sold out you are in regards to your presidency, whether it's the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog. I don't care. I'm saying this will fundamentally change the context of this country. If you want to have oil lines like they did back during the Jimmy Carter era, have that.
Well, there won't be no oil lines. There'd have to be oil in the gas station for you to get in line.
Right. Yeah,
but you know, exactly. You know, it's what is the old saying? Power only becomes power until you use it, then it becomes force.
Yep.
So power, like I said, what Scott is saying, you have to take it in a context. The context is the view of the U.S. as the power broker, the power of the world, right? Okay, there's a difference between power and force.
Yeah.
Do we have the guts to use the force, and do we have the force? Let's. I put it like this. I heard Alistair Crook talk about, you know, will Israel nuke Iran? And he said no. And they said, why? This was some months back. He said, let me explain something. He said, in the mountains all over the place, Iran has all of these, what do you call it? Bases, all throughout the mountains. Who knows? We don't even know how many bases they have, like under 500 foot of solid rock with dozens of entrances for every one. There's no way you could do anything to really, some of those bases, most of them will probably take a direct nuke hit. So you can't do anything with the bases. Okay. And those guys, they've got like the old dead man switch. Crook said, look, they got plans. If you nuke Iran, Tehran, and the people and the leadership is killed, their job is to unload every missile they got on Israel. And don't stop. And he said it could take months, if not years, but then unload everything they got nonstop on Israel from one end to the other, turn it to rubble, right? And I would imagine that would go for our bases and everything remotely, you know, the oil infrastructure. So if we did nuke Tehran or some blah, 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 and hit a couple of those bases, that's it. What are you going to do? They're going to, you know what I mean? If Alistair Crook is right, and he knows his stuff, then
he's very good.
Yeah. So will they do it? That's why I say it's possible. We'll just wait and see and find out. Now let's jump to the next one. This is a big story. And this is the discussion that everybody's having now. And that is, and I'm going to bring up an article that everybody has to look, but people forgot about that RFK Jr. did. Okay. I'll tell you why. So you had these protests, hands-off protests.
Hands off.
And a lot of people looked at the sign and it said, hands off NATO, right? And everybody was like, what the hell? So when you start looking up, who's behind it, it's this organization called Indivisible.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Right.
start looking up Indivisible. So let me show you an
Democratic
article
organization.
that
Yep.
everybody should read. Everybody know this is it. RFK Jr. and his people put it out because they went after him. It's called Who's Behind Indivisible? And they go on about it, about Indivisible, and they talk about Reid Hoffman being behind it. But then they go to talk about all the people, but then they go to the two people who are the co-founders, Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin, right? Which are an interesting pair. Leah Greenberg, so she worked for they both of them spent their whole lives working for NGOs. Greenberg, when you get in there, worked for the guy Pierre Omidar, the eBay guy.
Yep.
She worked for one of his NGOs, and then she worked for Tom, I forgot his name, Perello, the guy who was the congressman who then became the executive director for the Open Society Foundation. Then the other guy, her husband, Ezra Levin, who worked for another Prosperity Now. Prosperity Now was funded by BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, the Bill Gates Foundation, right? So that's who these people are, right?
Mhm.
And so this is and so bottom line is it is a real super insider organization. And when I started, I started looking up into it. In Indivisible, I found one of their statements where they were like, "Yes, Ukraine, the unprovoked aggression by the Russians," and I mean, the Russians made no attempt whatsoever to try to do any negotiating to stop the war, and we're proud of Biden, who did everything he could to stop this terrible aggression from happening. I mean, all lies and bullshit, right? But these are the people who are behind Hands Off. And so everybody remembers that article is called Who's Behind Indivisible. And they've got, and it was a real machine. It's like they've got a, what is it? It's a pack, right? There's like 3 of them. It's like, where is it? Indivisible. They had another organization they had called Disinformation. If disinformation doesn't or something, it was they had this other organization that was a fact-checking organization. So bottom line is this: when you look at this hands-off thing, it was run by these insiders, neocons, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, whatever. It was the people behind it was a total fraud. And even like Medea Benjamin, her and her people came to it, and then they complained because there was nothing. It was in there. It was noted NATO in there. There was another. I understood. I was reading something about this other guy. I think they were from North Carolina, who said, "Yeah, we wanted to speak and say something about Gaza," and they said, "No, you can't say it." It was such an insider, neocon, warmonger trash. The people that were running it. Your thoughts on the hands off NATO, as people are starting to call it?
It's interesting because I agree with you. It's AstroTurf, 1000%. I have mixed feelings. The reason I have mixed feelings is, it's AstroTurf. It's effectively sheepdogging people back to the Democratic Party. That's the entire purpose of it. Hey, and it's doing exactly what I didn't want to happen. And part of the reason that I didn't want Trump to be as ridiculous as he has been so far in his term. And what I mean by that is I wanted the Democratic Party smashed into pieces. I wanted it smashed so thoroughly that at some point there's a come to Jesus moment of maybe we're doing this wrong. 3 a.m. between them and their God, they're like, hey, it's time to repent. And I felt like the only way to kind of get that is if they couldn't succeed in the way that they were going, where they were effectively a fundraising cult that just took in money and didn't do anything when they took in the money, at least nothing positive for the constituents. I mean, for God's sake, they were supporting genocide. What Trump did, though, as opposed to fighting a political battle where he continued to smash the party for a generation, like passing no tax on tips, for example, would have been a good way to do that. Focusing on workers would have been contrary to what the Republican Party stands for. But It would have been a way to smash his opposition. He decided, I won. I'm the master of the world, and so I can do whatever I want. And in doing whatever I want, I'm going to destroy world markets. I'm going to attack countries without congressional approval and just, doing it for basically Israel. I'm going to back a genocide just as much as Joe Biden and Democrats were. And I'm now going to potentially start a war with Iran. So that's what I'm going to do. So the world is in flames. And I'm going to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I'm going to fire all of these workers. Like, all of these things are grotesque. And I'm going to put the richest man who's radically disliked at the helm of going after the poorest people in this country. And so the American public looks at that and they're like, okay, that's grotesque. We didn't vote for that. Meaning there's a level of honest rage in the public at that. So there's that part. The other part is the Democrats are like, all right, we don't stand for anything. We have no substance. We take money from our fundraisers and, from our donors, and we just do their bidding. However, we can stand there and we can point and say, I know we don't stand for anything, but hey, they're destroying Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Hey, they're starting wars, potentially with Iran. Hey, they're attacking Yemen. Hey, they're also doing genocide. Hey, meaning because he's been so grotesque in regards to what he's been doing around the world and what the American public can see it. Like when world markets are collapsing, the American public can see it. There's no way to turn away from it, right? It's screaming on your media for 4 or 5 days where the market drops like 1,000 points every day. People are losing trillions within the course of a few days. And Trump is like, I don't care. Elon Musk, I don't care. Yeah, I'm firing all these workers. So there's an honest discontent in the context of the public who thinks this is horrendous. We didn't vote for this. Now, it's another thing where the Democrats are like, who don't represent anything, have no substance, don't, do anything, but they can stand their point. And in this case, you get a bunch of rich Democrats who astroturf and say, hey, let's have a rally across all of these places. And let's bring out the people who are just Democrats and some people who may have some discontent at what Donald Trump is doing. Now, many of the people who are coming to the rally may not be political, meaning they may not have sense enough to realize you're being sheep-herded. And the entire point of these rallies is to funnel you into a Democratic Party that is sitting at 27% approval or 29% approval, depending upon the poll that you're looking at, who is worth nothing, has no substance, and will do nothing for you. It's frustrating because I said this is exactly what I didn't want to happen, and that is exactly what's happening right now. So you're right. This is AstroTurf. This is them finding ways to sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party because the Republicans might have gone too far. And I would tell you, the last time that they did this tariff stuff, the party that did it was trashed out of Congress, which means the Democrats, without doing anything of their own, being radically unpopular, may also people may slash back to them just because of how bad and what the Republicans are doing, especially if this extends over a period of time. I find this to be a disaster, an absolute and complete disaster. And look, the main disaster is those people being sheepdogged back into the party, which is what I don't want. So that's my take. I mean,
look at it. Here's an example. This is hands off, right? And if you look at their partners, Bulletproof Pride, Color of Change, I don't even know what the hell that is. Debt Collective. There's a lot of these, I'm sure, because they're heavily funded by, I think out of 11.4 million, they got $7.6 million from Open Society for Soros. So I would imagine when you look at these kind of things, Grassroots for GVP, Get Free, these kind of places, they mean, when you see those kinds of things,
MoveOn.org.
Yeah, MoveOn's out there. Stand Up for Science. You'll look at all of these kind of things and you'll like, what the hell's the name of that? A lot of times they're just AstroTurf kind of bullshit. You know what I mean? But find an anti-war one in here. Good luck there, right? So my point is, it gives them an opportunity to create, and might I add, Leah Greenberg was an advisor for the U.S. State Department,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, or better known as the CIA, right? So you have people who are directly connected to the State Department and intelligence and you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
now they're able to start an organization where we're standing against Trump. We're standing against Trump, right? And here's the whisper: we're standing against Trump, 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 and we got to get him to get his hands off the NATO, hands off of all kind of NATO. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're
Hands
like
off Zelensky. Yeah.
literally advocating for a brutal, vicious war machine that right now, unofficially, certainly, I mean, unofficially, NATO is a part of the Gaza conflict. All the NATO forces are there. All the NATO countries are there. Their ships are there. They're trying to intercept missiles there. So NATO is part of it. So you're literally advocating for NATO. And what Trump has done is given them some space to, as you said, to lie to people, to draw people who really are. Because when I look at some of the things they say, I say, yeah, I'm for that. Yeah, I don't like that Trump's firing people. I don't want him to
Right.
screw with Social Security or Medicare, different things like that. I don't, but I know who I'm dealing with. So you have all these people that as soon as they hear we're in opposition to Trump, yeah, I'm on board that. Little do they know, as you said, they're being taken in by this machine that understands the game. And it's like, how can we get people to support NATO? How can we get people to support the, you know, something that could lead us to nuclear war and all kinds of terrible things? And so they're real slick about it, and they know how to do it, and they're well funded. They got unlimited money. So that's the real terrible part about, you know, that's the real terrible part about that. Something that I wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm. I have a story to bring up too.
Oh no, go ahead. Then. Go ahead. While I'm getting
no. After you bring up yours, do yours.
Okay, this is something that I think. Give me a second. Here we go. It is something similar to the story in Germany. 12,000 Brits arrested per year over social media posts. Thousands of people in the UK have been detained and questioned by police over online posts. Literally, according to figures published, officers make 12,000 arrests annually under Section 127. These laws criminalize causing distress by sending messages that are grossly offensive or by sharing content of an indecent, obscene, or menacing character, right? They get around 33 per day, right? It says the statistics have sparked public outcry, civil liberties. They're accusing authorities of over policing the internet and undermining free speech through the use of vague communication laws. And you know, we've seen this over the course of the last few years, where like somebody would literally say, "Well, you know, I think that what's going on in Gaza, the Israelis aren't doing right. They're killing people or something," and they'll say, "Oh, you're threatening people." Somebody will say, "Well, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing," and they'll say, "You're a jerk." "Oh, you're threatening the people," or people play that game. "You're threatening me," you know, playing those games. We see that games are being played online. But to me, I look at it and I'm like, notwithstanding that we are certainly a totalitarian state in a lot of ways, man, when I see this crap, I'm like, I feel like this. If based on the things I've said and done, if I landed in England or Germany, they're not even gonna slow me up. Like you know, those slides that when they land on the water, they won't even use like steps. They'll open one of the doors and then I'll go down the slide right into the back of a police van. They'll just close the doors. They'll put water on it like a slip and slide for kids. Open the door, whoosh, down into the back of the police van, and off I go to Scotland Yard. I'm done. And probably you too, buddy.
Yeah. I said some bad things online sometimes. Yeah. That's terrifying. Richard Medhurst, if you remember, they arrested him, and then he went to another country. I think he was in Austria, and they arrested him in Austria, and took his equipment, took all of the stuff. "Oh, you're supporting Hamas." He's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And they were like, "We believe you're working for Hamas." Just nonsense. And you know who defines whether or not you hurt somebody's feelings, right? Some people are brittle. And like you say stuff that may not necessarily be overtly offensive, but they take issue with it. Or this anti-Semite stuff. It's like they murdered a 14-year-old kid, and it's like, that's anti-Semitic. Israel said that they killed themselves. Lock them up. Like, who defines these laws? I mean, and look, I get it. Europe doesn't have a First Amendment. So, you're pretty much screwed on the issue of free speech. Vance, as hypocritical as he is, was right on this. They've lost the plot. They fundamentally lost the plot. Yeah, this is outrageous. You know what it is, though? They have the same issue as in America, but America has First Amendment. That in the old days, and even now, they have D notices in the UK where they can shut the media up if they don't want them to reveal something that the government has. I mean, if you remember recently, Apple won the lawsuit because what the UK wanted to do was put a back channel into iPhones and not tell the public. Basically, we want to be able to access information in the cell phones, but we don't want the public to know that we want to access information in their cell phones. And Apple was like, yeah, no. And they won it in court, effectively telling the UK, F off. You can't hide that from the public. Not to mention, Europe doesn't have any of these tech companies anyway. Twitter, Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, all that stuff is in the US. Or for that matter, maybe in Russia, I think Telegram.
Telegram in China has TikTok and Red Bull. They're the only ones that have nothing.
They have squat. They have no industries. They don't have any credit card systems, meaning Visa, MasterCard, all those things are American. They have squat. And then they're like, hey, we're falling behind in industries. No duh. And so from their point of view, well, mainstream media is what we want to, propagandize to the people. And if you have social media that says that our media is full of shit, well, we don't like that. We don't like the ability of social media to come up with different stories. We don't like people to go in other countries and find other stories talking about how we're making shit up or full of shit. We don't like that. And so we need to find a way to somehow corral social media in regards to what people say on social media. And criminalization is one of the ways that they're trying to do it. I understand that this is, oh, you said something bad to me. And so then now the German or the British police are knocking on my door in order to drag me away, beat me up, and take me to jail because I hurt your feelings on Facebook. Grow the fuck up. Grow up. You're an adult. People say bad things to each other on social media. Don't be so brittle. Don't be so brittle. I like it's ludicrous that they're passing laws. And by the way, Minnesota recently, if I remember, I think it's Minnesota, passed a law that criminalized misgendering. So if I called you a woman, Minnesota may charge me with a crime. What the F? Like, how are they spending tax dollars doing shit like this? This is outrageous. It's like, okay, the guy has a full beard, but if I accidentally call him a guy, you're gonna go after me. It's like he's gonna dress in a full beard.
Look, there's something even worse. Click, click. Hello, yes, police, quick, send somebody. There's a madman with a chainsaw and an axe breaking in my back door. Sorry, we can't right now. Wow. Our officers are on the scene of a misgendering incident, arresting somebody, so we don't really have anybody to send. You know what I mean? We've got a whole SWAT team breaking into somebody's house who's accused of misgendering their next door neighbor. So, hey, we'd like to send somebody to stop, Jason from Friday the 13th with a hockey mask and a machete coming through to hack your whole family to death. Yeah, if we had somebody, but we've got bigger fish to fry right now. We've got a misgendering incident, all points bulleted. Everybody's responding to that.
That is so outrageous. I mean, because think about it for a moment. My bias, believe it or not, is what's real. That's my bias. I can't get away from it. And I may get stuff wrong, but ultimately my bias is, okay, is this real or not? I know you may believe this. I know you may feel this. I don't care about your feelings. I don't often even care about my own feelings, right? And I would say my feelings could be wrong. I accept that as a basis of operation. I have sympathy for people who feel like they're in the wrong body, but I'm stuck with the reality that, dude, you have an XY chromosome. She has an XX chromosome, and no cosmetic surgery, no lipstick, nothing is changing it. And so I'm not trying to be a dick to you if I misgender you by accident, but the reality of it is you are what you are. And I'm stuck with that. And so when people are so this is a law that ignores reality for the sake of people's feelings. And I have no issue calling somebody a she if they want to be called a she, or calling a he if they want to be called a he. God bless, fair enough. I don't want you playing sports. I don't want you being combat sports, definitely. I don't want you cutting the dick off of a 14-year-old, 12-year-old because they feel some kind of way. Like, those are things that, no, I don't necessarily want. But Jesus, like, it's the idea that you put that into law, where you are effectively saying, fuck reality. Reality does not matter in this case. Their feelings matter more. It's outrageous. I think it was Minnesota that did that nonsense.
Well,
So,
and
I just want to put it, all of this is bad. Like, all of this is bad.
Yeah. It gets back to this, and you ask yourself, gee, I wonder why the Democrats got blown out.
Yeah.
Which Democratic strategist looked around and said, okay, we need a platform. What is the hill that we're just going to die on? I got it. Misgendering people. Some 6'4", 230-pound, muscle-bound woman beating the crap out of some woman who was born, who's 5'1" and weighs 103 pounds soaking wet in a boxing match. That's what we want. Which one of them decided that's the moral position to take? And you look at the numbers, and these are 80-20 positions. 80% of people are like, no, I ain't down with that.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to take a position where 20% of the people are like, yeah, I mean, just from a logical political perspective. And you get clobbered, and you come out and say, well, apparently we didn't yell it loud enough. And you look at it and you're like, and it's what's even worse? Here's the bad part about that whole discussion. You and I are evil and wrong just for saying it. I believe in this. Look, you and I don't, like you said, people say, what, can you believe what Scott Ritter said? And I say, time out. I believe what pisses me off about MSNBC, that they won't bring Ray McGovern on like they used to, or Larry Johnson like they used to. Bring on somebody who disagrees with you, and then you all disagree and say, well, that was great, and you go on about your business, right? I love Scott. He's a close friend of mine. And Scott and I may have some areas of this that we don't agree, but I understand what he's coming from, and I can nuance it. In the end, I can say, well, we don't agree here, but we agree here. The strength, to me, of alternative media. I was looking at your show the other day. You had Mark Frost. And before Mark Frost came, when you said, well, Mark Frost and I don't agree on this crap, right? Yeah. I said, but I love Mark Frost. Mark Frost comes up, and he was the one, you're like, well, I don't agree with you, Mark. He's like, but you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, that's a great show. Yeah. That's a show, a sign of people who have emotional maturity, who can say, hey, this is my position. I don't agree with you, but go ahead and get it out there. That's the strength of alternative media, right? So the weakness to me is to say I've taken a position on transgender stuff. I don't mind. And somebody said, well, Garland, let me tell you why you should be able to misgender people. And then you and I can say, well, we don't agree, and this is why. Then afterwards, we can shake hands and say, we're all adults here. We disagree. I'll make the argument. I got a daughter. When she was born, I only saw two options, M or F. That's all I saw. What is she, M or F? Well, the doctor looked down. That's an F. There you go. We will circle that one. That wasn't hard, right? So we can talk about gender all we want to. When a kid's born, they only give you M or F. So I tend to say, I don't care whatever you say about gender. Scientifically speaking, right, there are two sexes, male or female. And when we get into all this gender stuff, now you're getting into opinion, and you can have your opinion. Don't force it on me. And I won't force mine on you, or we'll go the different. And don't force me. I have to call you the right pronouns. Well, no, I don't. I don't have to call you anything. I'm not
Yeah.
disrespecting you. You can call yourself whatever you want. If your name is whatever it is, I will call you by your name. Or hey you. It doesn't matter to me. But that's what to me is the, amongst other things, but it's one of the most perplexing things about the Democratic Party, that a political party could take an issue like that and reframe it as a moral issue. Because here's the thing. Once you reframe something as a moral issue, you saying, I'm taking this on moral grounds, you can never back down from it, can you?
Yeah, there's no
You're
debate.
tied to it for life because you've defined it as right, wrong, moral. You've taken the right one. I don't care how much of a minority you fall into, you've defined it as a moral position. And now I think that's one of the reasons they're doomed. How much, again, what happens at the midterms? It's weird because I keep the one thing that we've never seen before. I saw another poll, 69% of Americans are unhappy with the Democrats, have a negative, 69% negative view of the Democrats. So generally, it's always, oh, Trump's going down, Democrats are going up. Democrats are going down, Republicans are going up. Now it's both going down. I've just never seen that before. I don't know how that translates in politics, but
Yeah.
you and I could be arrested just for this conversation.
Yeah.
And there's countries, they'd arrest us just for saying, I don't like that misgender stuff. What?
If we were in Germany, yeah, we'd be arrested. Okay, you said a lot, and I want to delve into it a little bit. I want to delve into a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with you with the conversation thing. I can have conversations with people I disagree with, no issue at all. And even though people on my channel scream at me, why is he here? And I was like, this is not an echo chamber.
Yes.
We have people that we disagree with. And Mark hit me up, and he was very pro what Trump was doing. And I said, dude, we are so going to disagree on this.
Yeah.
And I brought him on so we can have the conversation.
Yeah,
right?
It's great.
Ritter, I had Ritter on the show when he was bringing up Iran, Palestine, etc. Him and I disagreed the entire thing. And I think I told him at one point, dude, you're out of your mind if you believe that, right? But as I told the audience, that's his point of view. Like I don't care per se if that is his point of view. I'm either going to agree with it and disagree with it, and I'm going to work from the perspective of whether I agree with it or disagree with it. It's like any show. It's not an echo chamber. I don't need it to be an echo chamber. I'm fine with having those debates. The Democratic Party, you're right. They turn it into moral issues. And so if you're on MSNBC or you're on CNN and we were having this conversation, the Democrat would scream at us that we're transphobic and they would lose their minds. I've seen them do it where a person says like, yeah, a little boy is playing in a girl's sport, and they lost it. The guy's screaming at the guy, saying, how dare you, sir? You can't say that about, and it's like, are you serious right now? Are you serious right now? The guy's trying to give you his point of view, and you're flipping out like this? Because again, from his point of view, this is a moral, ethical issue. And so I must defend this moral, ethical issue as if you were beating a child. And it's like, okay, dude, there's no way to have a conversation with you about this. And the fact that the majority of the public disagrees with you on it makes it even worse. That there's nobody who can have a conversation with you on this issue. 1,000% agree with you. 1,000% agree we'd be arrested if we were in one of those countries. I'm fine having Ritter on my show. And yes, I'm brought him up. He's on my mind because I've talked about him earlier today. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't even bring him up. He's been on my show several times. He is always welcome on my show. He is not coming back on my show for his own reasons. But I guess my point is, it is a virtue to be able to have those conversations, especially when you disagree, and to be adults and be like, all right, we agree to disagree. Mark's still a friend of mine, right? I don't care that I disagree with Mark on this. I don't care that my audience is screaming at me like, oh my God, I can't believe you're having Mark on. It doesn't matter. He is an economist. He has a certain point of view of the world that is rational, believe it or not. Meaning, whether I agree or disagree with Mark and I end up meeting at a very specific place, despite the fact that both of us disagree on many issues or we come from a different angle. And I found him to be an honest actor in what he's talking about. And so if he's saying something, he may be wrong, but he's honest about it, if that makes sense. And I care about the honesty more than anything else.
One other thing, and he can tell you how he came to that conclusion. It's
Yeah.
not a superficial position. You know what? Then that's important that you say, "Well, I disagree. Why do you believe that?" And the person can give you a rational conclusion of why they got there, and you might not even agree with the steps, but you can
Right.
say, "But you know what? I see how you got there. I might have some holes in that." And more,
Yeah.
and so it makes sense to me. Yeah, and the audience should hear that.
Yeah. I could be wrong, right? Like, meaning my analysis could be wrong. Mine could be right. Or right, or somewhere in between. And so, yeah, I don't want this kind of echo chamber thing where everybody comes on and just repeats the exact same thing and everybody agrees on the exact same thing. There will be some shows where people come on like that. I have had fights with people from NATO. I've had fights with people from Israel, especially Israel. I think it was Netanyahu's press guy at one point. Those are shows. Some of those shows are hard. Because of the people talking about it.
It's a tough world. It's a hard world.
Yeah, it is what it is. Oh, the story I wanted to cover.
Yes.
Can I play a clip for you?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So, Donald Trump comes out and effectively says, I am going to sanction the world. All right. China tells him, F off. And China puts 34% sanctions on US products. Donald Trump says, if China doesn't remove those sanctions, I'm going to add, I think it's like 50% more. What he doesn't quite get is that China only has like 2 or 3% of America's goods coming into China. Anyway, they can go elsewhere for those products. In which case they can say, okay, screw it. We don't need your stuff in our country. He doesn't quite understand that, meaning they are not going to bend the knee. They're not going to give them any leeway. They're not going to take a back seat at all. They're in a trade war at this point, from this point on. China has decided we are going to restrict rare earth minerals, where 80% of them come from us. We are now restricting those because we don't want countries to use them against our interests. Now, they put it in this very political language that made it very dodgy, but ultimately, you may not get any more rare earth minerals from us. Europe is taking a different tact. And I had an argument with my ex over this, who's European. And her thing is like, well, we're being rational and dealing with it. All right. As I pointed out to her, your rationality is going to be taken for weakness. And he is going to prey upon you like a mob boss would prey upon anybody else. Meaning China's response is correct. F off. Now, if you need to project strength, and after you project strength, meet somewhere in the middle from the projection of strength, okay, at the very least, the person will respect you. And at the very least, you're not looking weak and looking like a rabbit to a vampire. All right. So Ursula von der Leyen came out and effectively said, all right, we will work with Trump. We will get rid of our trade barriers for industries. And we will, make this deal, and we would try to negotiate with Trump. And as I told her, wrong strategy. Wrong strategy. That is so wrong in this context, right? Mark Root, and he's like, give me your watch before you leave. That's what's going to happen. So what did Trump do? Trump came out and said this.
And we take their cars, Mercedes, Volkswagen, BMW. We take their millions of cars. They take no cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take anything. Europe's treated us very badly. We put a big tariff on Europe. They are coming to the table. They want to talk, but there's no talk unless they pay us a lot of money on a yearly basis. Number one for present, but also for past, because they've taken a lot of our wealth away, and we're not going to allow it to happen.
He is saying that Europe is going to have to pay reparations to the United States in order to get a trade agreement back on. Meaning, before we negotiate with you, you're going to have to agree to pay us reparations. So what started off as, well, we want to get tariff-free engagement with these countries, is now you also need to pay us reparations for past and current behavior in Europe because you've been taking so advantage of us. What the hell?
They're getting Ukraine, right? They're getting Ukraine, isn't it? Ukraine, not only do you got to give us money for weapons from now on. We've given you $350 billion. You know, totally ignoring the fact that the U.S. like armed Ukraine and dragged them into this war, right? But no, you got to pay us for the past. What about Europe? Yeah, y'all too. Everybody's got to pay us. It's the first. You know, the interesting thing is the foundation of this is victimization.
Yeah.
Why is America suffering? Could it be because the ruling elite have made bad decisions? Could it be because, as Jimmy Carter had talked about, while China was spending money on infrastructure, we were wasting 15, 16, 17 trillion dollars on war and another 15 trillion dollars on tax cuts for the rich? Could that have anything to do with $30 trillion might change our situation? No, it is pure victimization. It is, we were victimized by China. Anybody else? Ukraine victimized us. Who else? The Europeans victimized us. Everybody's victimized us. And as we talk, so Donald Trump has one conflict resolution skill, right? I'm going to punch you in the face and I'm going to dominate you and I'm going to threaten you. That's his conflict. We've got a conflict. What do? Threaten everybody. If they're weaker, you threaten them and you're taking everything from them and they're going to give me everything. So now basically he's going to strong arm Europe.
Yeah.
Guess what? Nice economy you got there. I know it's a little weak, but you know, it could get a lot worse, guys. It could get a lot worse. So you give me some money. They're like looking at Ukraine and Russia. That's the least of their problems. You know what? If they were smart, first of all, we've got more money for Ukraine to buy weapons for Ukraine. You know, they just came up with another X amount of billion. Really? What are you going to do with that money? Oh, we're going to give it to U.S. companies. Suckers. Suckers. The U.S. started a war, dragged everybody else into it, and now these people are like, we'll fix Trump. We're going to fight. You won't give him. We'll give Ukraine more money for more weapons. And who are you going to buy them from? I'm going to buy them from the U.S. And Trump's like, yeah, good idea, suckers. Thanks. By the way, that ain't enough. You need to pay us for the past, the future, the present, whatever, the other dimensions you need to give us. And bottom line is, give us everything you got. We want it all. By the way, we're repatriating our industry. We're reindustrialized. That means we're going to take your corporations and move them over here. So we'll make you so poor that your corporations can't even stay there. Then we'll take your corporations. He is cannibalizing. The empire is cannibalizing itself. Yeah. And he's eating Europe alive. And they don't know what to do because them dummies are so focused on, they're so focused on Ukraine and they got to take out Russia, right? And Russia is the economically healthy people in the region. The only economically healthy country in the region is Russia. They're broke. They're sick. Their people are enraged, ready to put the AFD or whoever, anybody, the hell, Marine Le Pen, anybody they can. But these schmucks they want in office, and the best they can do is say, we must prepare for war with Russia. If you went to war with Russia, what would you do? Throw rocks at them? You don't have grenades. You don't have tanks. You don't have nothing. And now Trump's going to take you to the cleaners. And you know what? As P.T. Barnum said, it's a crime against God and nature to allow a sucker to keep his money. The European ruling elite, this is what they get.
What's that? Oh, wait a minute. What's that quote? It's a God. It's a crime against God and nature to allow a sucker to keep his money.
P.T. Barnum said it's a crime against God and nature to allow a sucker to keep his money.
Oh, that's fantastic.
There we go. Starmer and Macron, they're standing up to Trump. Good job. Good work. How's that working out? But it's not going to work out because he's discrediting. People are looking at the U.S. now and saying, man, we thought y'all were unstable. Now we know, we thought, gee, the U.S. is getting politically and economically unstable. Now they're like, okay, we get the message. Y'all are out of your freaking minds. But you're right about China. China has been preparing for this for years. And what did China recently told us? They told us they were prepared. Recently, China said, we're prepared for an economic war. Remember that? Just recently.
Any war.
In any kind of war, we are ready. So what they're saying is, we got our ships, we got our missiles, we're stocked up, we're ready for war. We got, like, I saw recently, there was the estimate that the U.S. has 174,000 combat troops prepared. China has 25 million in reserve ready to go. 25 million troops. Not to mention, they make 200 ships a year, we make 4. You know what I mean? They're just spitting out 1,000 missiles a day out of one factory. They're like, okay, we're all good to go. You screw with us, you can't beat Yemen. And y'all want to come to the Taiwan Strait? Probably not a good idea, but let's see what happens, right? So they're ready militarily. And now they're like, we have been preparing for this for decades. We knew you would come for us economically, and we got all the advantage. And oh, by the way, you got a bunch of stupid ideologues running your fiscal policy. Let's do this. They're like, let's do this. So they're like, okay, and let me add this. So Trump says he's doing this to bring, what is it? He's going to bring industry back. He's going to make us healthier, right? So he says, boom, 34% on China. So China says, okay, 34% on you. So then Trump says, oh yeah, well, I'll hit you with 50. Wait a minute, what the hell is this? A game of poker? Because they're going to come back and say, well, I'll hit you with 50. Well, I hit you with 100. I'll hit you. And at some point, we got like 500,000% on. And bottom line, at some point, we can't buy anything whatsoever from China. It's all over. And if he hits them with another 50, that's the point. And what happens to Walmart? What happens to Amazon? What happens at that point when that little thing that you bought on Amazon for your keychain, it costs $4.99, is now $87.27? That's it for Amazon. All their the Amazon warehouses and all that closes. Walmart, which is the #1, sadly and pathetically, employer in many states, becomes the 0 employer in many states. He's what's the saying? He's there's something about he's lighting matches in the powder hold of a ship.
I'm throwing stones in a glass house.
Exactly.
He doesn't seem to care. He's a billionaire. He doesn't seem to care. Like, I legit don't think he cares about the American public. Again, from my point of view, Trump is amoral to the truth.
Oh, yeah.
So reality is not an impediment for anything that he says or anything that he does in this case. And so he can see the markets collapsing around him. And look, I know there's some people out there who really believe that Trump is standing up for the American worker. You are out of your fucking mind if you think that. I'm sorry.
I would throw one thing. There's a guy named Shahid Bolson. He does Middle Nation, and he has an interesting talk always. And what he says is this. He says, look, whenever you try to figure out why something is happening, why the people are doing it, such as why is this? He says, you're fundamentally mistaken if you don't look at the outcome and say that's the outcome they wanted. He's like, so if you look at this and say, I wonder why Trump's doing it. He says, now, first of all, it ain't just Trump. It's the ruling elite. They've made this decision. He said, but the markets are crashing. He says, that's what they're doing it. So that he says, just look at it and say, what is the outcome? That's the reason they're doing it. That's the outcome they want. That's his argument, right? Which there's a logical argument to be made. You know what I mean? Whether it's true or not, but it's a logical argument. But what he says is, I could go down that road logically, right? And say, shoot, if they didn't want him to do that and he tanked the markets, they'd kill him. And that's a logical argument to be made based on the history of the United States killing presidents to do things that they don't want, right? But if you go on to say, and his other argument, he goes on to say, look, this is unavoidable. Everybody knows anything about the system that, you know, Biden was pumping a lot of liquidity in the system to stop the inevitable crash that they knew been coming for the last 4 or 5 years, that they knew before COVID was about to hit. The markets was about to crash before COVID hit, right? And so when they call them I forgot what they call them, but bottom line is they've been artificially keeping things from crashing. And now they're like, look, things are going to crash. Let's go ahead and knock it down and get this shit out of the way with. So that's the argument he's making. I don't know. 50 years from now, we could find out it's true or false. I can see how someone could get there. That's all I'm saying. And I don't say that it's true or not. And that's what I think is important. I can see how you could get there.
I think like I said, if I take the best version of this for Trump, maybe he does want to reindustrialize America. I mean, but there are problems with that. Like for example, there may be stuff that we just don't make in this country. There may be stuff that we can't make in this country over the course of the next few years that we still have to effectively buy from somebody else that is going to have a high tariff on that particular product until an American business decides, okay, now it is profitable for me to make this item. And if you listen to Letnick, his thing is, well, we're going to put in robots to build shoes and socks and shirts. Okay, well, why robots? Because what he understands is that if you're paying somebody $50 an hour to make a shirt, that shirt is going to cost like $30, as opposed to the $5 shirt that you get from Walmart from China. Like, there are structural realities that we have in this country from the standpoint of regulation, from the standpoint of the cost in regards to an American worker versus somebody, let's say in the Philippines or somewhere else. There's structural realities. And if we are trying to do that, this idea of we're bringing back businesses here, then by definition, the American cost has to go up. There's no choice for it to go up. If I'm employing people at a particular business that wasn't necessarily in the US or didn't have a lot of business in the US, then by definition, I'm paying higher for that particular product. If I'm buying a car in the United States as opposed to buying a car from China, let's say BYD, I'm going to pay more for the car because America has unions. Those unions push for certain wages. And in order for that company to be solvent, you have to have a price point on that car for the person to buy it. Now, you can say, well, that's great because, at the very least, they're buying American. Okay, that may be true. Just accept the higher prices. Go with that all the way through. I mean, whether it's the items that we're bringing abroad, and it is very possible that companies increase the cost of their items to match what is coming in regards to the tariffs. So you may get even a modest inflation just by definition because of the American product adjusting itself to now market conditions where the market now allows that price point to be higher. I want American businesses to flourish. I want people to get decent wages. I want unions in this country. By the same token, this is not, whatever Trump wants. Trump has never worked for anybody's interest but his own. And the fact that he's doing this, it's not targeted. It's not specific. It's not this kind of, okay, we've done some analysis and we've come up and figured out we could have targeted tariffs on this because this is a product that we need to protect. It's not that. It's an across the board reshuffling where his thing is, I'm going to have these bilateral negotiations with all of these countries to figure out how I can effectively dominate on behalf of quote unquote America in this sense, while all of us for the next 10 years pay exorbitant prices as he goes through this fool's errand. I just don't. We've done this before. That's what I'm saying. Like, we've run this test. And during the Great Depression, it made it worse. So no, I don't have fuzzy feelings about this. My feeling is we are gonna all be paying more for the various items that we typically need in our life, while the millionaires, the billionaires, the donors, and people like Donald Trump, for the most part, are unscathed. And he's gonna give them a tax cut on top.
And you got to add this. I know we're getting towards the end, a couple more minutes here, and we can go. But and here's the other thing. Okay, I've decided I'm coming back to America, and I'm going to build this factory with these giant companies with robots. Right? Who makes those all of those giant machines now? China. So I got to import the machines from China. Oh, I can't do that because there's an exorbitant 100%, 50, 60, 70% tariff on them. So if I want to build the factory here, I got to buy the machines from China, but it's so expensive to buy the machines that I can't really build the factory here. And at some point, I just say, I just can't do the American market anymore. I can't build factories here because even the machines that I would buy, might I add this? And people forget about this. In the Washington, D.C. area, you've been here. It's 104 degrees, which it gets 102 sometime in July and August, right? And everybody's got their air conditioners on, and they have brownouts and rolling brownouts and things like that where people run out of power, right? Our electrical infrastructure cannot handle. Now, here's what you do. Bring in 100 factories. In Virginia, put in 100 factories. That every one of those factories is building things. Every one of those factories is running 24 hours building things. Put thousands of factories back into Michigan. Put them in South Carolina, textile factories all across Ohio. Put all of these factories in. And we have an electrical infrastructure from the 1940s. The day you hit that switch on the factory is the day the whole damn thing goes kaplunk, right? Yeah. So here's the truth. Trains. Our train system is pathetic. It's from the 1930s and 40s and 50s. You do not have the train system to transport these things. Our harbors are old and we don't have enough of them. So you're going to make all this stuff, but your electrical infrastructure can't handle the power needed for the factories. Your harbors and ports are not big and modernized with all of these things that do all the modern stuff, with giant tracks loading the ships by machine and all this. The infrastructure that you have is from the 1950s, when factories worked in the 50s. That ain't the way they work now. So even if companies wanted to do it, the infrastructure couldn't do it. They're going to run across bridges all day. The bridges will crumble. The British bridges, some of them were made, look at the number, 1912, made in 1912, literally. So this is like this pie in the sky dream of ideologues that in the real world, they haven't thought it through. It's just an ideological bullshit that they haven't. It's an ideological dream. It's just no possibility. It's a joke. And basically, what's going to happen is exactly what you said. You get the last word, Jamal.
Also, the education system. I mean, it's not like, oh, they're investing in wages. It's not like he's going to raise wages. He's busting unions. So again, for the worker argument fails to this notion of, well, he's also destroying unions. Workers, poor, regular people in America require things like Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Okay, well, they're destroying that. So again, I don't know how that's the benefit of workers. And education. Like, this is the same administration where they had two foreigners telling Americans that they were too stupid to do technical jobs. And so it's like, okay, they wanted to bring over H-1B1 visa people here, basically indentured servants, to take the place of American workers. America First president wanted to effectively bring over foreign workers to take the jobs of Americans because Americans were too stupid, according to two foreigners, in his stead. One of them still being there. So don't get into shit about, Trump is fighting for American workers. No, he's not. And how do you have people who are educated up to the point of being able to do these technical jobs that he wants to bring back into the country when you're destroying the Department of Education and you're not going to invest any money into education? Like, this is magical thinking. You would have me if Trump was like, he's putting a bunch of money into education. He's putting a bunch of money into factories and industries in this country. He is giving out grants for this or that in order to build the stuff. He is putting in high-speed rail, meaning if he was investing in America, he would have me. If he was doing things for the standpoint of education, he would have me. If he was doing things for the standpoint of making sure that the American citizen is intact as they grow up, you would have me. None of those things are taking place. I'm hard-pressed to see how this is working in the best interest of workers. And yeah, they voted for him because there was nothing being offered on the other side. So fair enough, but don't give me this idea that this is an American first president who don't seem to care about Americans.
No, he's an Israel first president. He's an everybody first president. He won because he ran against Kamala Harris, and she was about as sharp as a furry marble. He ran because he got rolled around in a garbage truck with a yellow suit on, and he made French fries. All that stuff is great as far as the showmanship, and it'll get you elected. But once you sit down in the office, people want some meat and potatoes. And you know what? There's no there. There's no real substance to his policies, and there's America. That's where we are, right? That's a declining empire. Jamal Thomas. Hey, everybody! Don't forget, if you're watching my show and you're not a member of Jamal's channel, we run these shows simultaneously. So make sure you go over to his channel and subscribe. If you're watching on his channel, make sure you come over to my channel, subscribe. Make sure it's critical that you're subscribed to both channels. Follow me on Rockfin. Follow me on Telegram. Follow me on Rumble. And of course, if you want to donate, you got Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, PayPal, stuff like that. What say you for how people can find you and donate and all that stuff, Jamal?
Oh, same thing. PayPal, Patreon, Super Chats, CashApp. Those are, you like the video. Definitely join me in the morning, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. The best day of morning show.
Who you got tomorrow morning?
Dan Kovalik.
He's great.
AJ No is going to be on. He's going to be talking about response, especially with rare earth minerals. Who do I have on for 7? I don't remember who I have on for 7. Dimitri Lascaris It's gonna
Oh,
be a huge-
Dimitri's great.
guest. Yeah, he's a great guest.
Excellent. You got a great
So-
lineup tomorrow, man.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent lineup, but I think I need a 9 o'clock. But all things being equal, yeah, it's a great lineup for tomorrow.
All right, sounds like a winner. Everybody, share this on all your social media platforms. Peace. We're out.